What are others learning from your mistakes? Well, hopefully the first mistake you're learning from is doing this video outside on our street when it seems to be busy today. Hi there, I'm Julie Brooks, Juliebrooks.life, and this is Real Talk. They say you need a reset. They say you're too old to start over. They say wellness comes with a price tag, but often they are wrong. So today we are going to talk about mistakes. And I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory as to why we're going to talk about mistakes. All right, so every morning, some of you already know this, my husband and I do questions. And one of the questions that came up today was, and I will read it right here for you, what are others learning from my mistakes? And you're supposed to answer it for yourself, obviously. And my instant answer was not enough. And the reason it's not enough, I'm just going to talk slowly while this big vehicle drives by. As I said, mistake number one for the day. So, why I instantly said they're not learning enough is because my mistakes are seldom what I talk about. I don't necessarily talk about my successes either. We all have different quirks to our personality, and my personality is one that is always looking for the future, always looking for the next thing, always looking for that freedom, that excitement, that challenge. Now, not everybody works that way, but I have made a lot of mistakes. If you are adventurous, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. If you are curious, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. But what do you show or tell the world? Is it just the highlight reel? Often it is. So, we're going to talk about why it's really important to talk about your mistakes. Now, the reason that I think it's so important, and this is me personally, I'm just going to talk off the cuff now, like I usually do, is because humans are the only species that can learn relationally. And what that means is you don't have to see it, you don't have to experience it, you can just be told about it and you can learn from it. That's not normal for any other species. That's humans only. So, if we aren't telling anybody about our mistakes and why we think they're mistakes, then how can they learn from us? They can't. So, this is kind of a cautionary tale. Far too many of us are living in our, let's call it ego. Ego's not always a bad thing, but let's call it ego for the sake of this video. And our ego says, don't tell them that. Don't show that. They'll think less of you. You'll look silly, whatever it is. And I'm here to tell you that if you allow your friends, your children, your family to go down a road you've already been, that you could easily tell them, hey, this was my experience. That doesn't have to be yours. This was my experience, and this is why that was my experience. Then it just saves so many people so much time. All right. So, in the effort of being completely transparent and honest, I'm going to tell you guys about a few mistakes that I've personally made in my life. And we're not going to dig too deep because this is just a small little podcast, but I've made some big ones. So, one of the things that I would say is one of my bigger mistakes. Oh, bear with me. Let me get through this whole sentence. My first marriage, but not because of him, and not necessarily because of me, but because of us. And I'd love to say that we were young, and we were in our 20s, but that's just an excuse, guys. Any of you are there like, oh, I was too young to know better. Well, it is true that the brain does not fully form till you're 25 years old. You knew better. How many of you, let's talk about first marriages or even, yes, first marriages, because that is what it is. You had second guesses. You weren't sure if it was the right person. You weren't sure if it was the right time. You weren't sure what you wanted in life in general. But did you openly speak about that? Maybe you vented to a girlfriend a little bit, but then whatever she told you back or whatever your mom said, you just kind of went, whatever. You didn't actually listen. So red flags in all of our mistakes are a big thing. And not so much that we have the red flag, that we don't pay attention to the red flag. And what I mean by that, so my first husband, his family members said, like, are you sure this is what you want to do? And my little heart, bless me, said, oh, even his family doesn't understand. I will rescue him. And like I said, our marriage was not his fault that it ended. It was our fault that it ended. However, huge red flags along the way that we just sweep under the rug or don't pay attention to at all. And some of them are bigger than others. All right. So, I'm just going to pick up my handy dandy little scribe that I love. And no, Kindle is not sponsoring me, but they could. If you want to sponsor me, Kindle, you are more than welcome to. All right. So, being in business for yourself. I have been in business for myself since I was 16 years old, and I'm a lot more than 16 years old now. And I like being in business for myself. I often joke that I'm unemployable, and that is probably somewhat true. But here's the thing, guys. Business for yourself is not for everyone. It is definitely not for the people that just want to clock in, clock out, take a vacation, leave it on the table, walk away that evening. It's not for you. It's for people that want that. The word grind is coming up. I don't know that anybody consciously wants that grind, but I know that I subconsciously want it. I want a challenge. I want to do better every day. And being your own boss is an opportunity to really push yourself to do better and be better every day. And I'm not saying that as an employee, you can't also have that energy. But it's different. And it's not better, it's not worse. But if you think, I need to be my own boss, really talk to some business owners. Talk to some business owners about what life really looks like. The fact that you're never on vacation. You don't even probably want to be on vacation, so that's kind of hard on your family. Just recently, we left for a weekend off, and we got one day away and went, why are we even doing this? Like, let's just turn around. Because there was no purpose. There was no drive to just enjoy. So you can see, I make a lot of mistakes. Never saying I don't. All right. So the next one is fitness versus health. Now, I talk about this in my life coach course, the foundations course, where I teach about a whole bunch of mistakes that I've made. That's not what it's all about. But, a couple things fall into that category. So, fitness means that you can do a certain activity. Let's take running, for example. You can run a certain amount of mileage without dying because you have conditioned your body to be able to do that. It takes some practice. You don't go for a run the first day and you're able to run fast and not, and be able to breathe and all that kind of fun stuff. But as you condition yourself, you can absolutely run faster, run further, and it's easier. No question. But does that mean that you're healthy? Absolutely not. You can look at a lot of people that do specific things that they have gotten fit in, and it's not the same thing as health. Holistic health means that all your body systems are working in sync, that you are in a good place mentally, physically, emotionally. That is healthy. And a lot of the time, high-end athletes, people that have a specific sport, are not in that category. So, and I'm not saying you can't do both. Some amazing athletes are also very healthy, but that is not a direct connection. That is not always the case. So, I would love you guys to do a little bit of homework maybe. And that homework is to think about maybe some of the mistakes. And I'm not going to call them failures. And it's not that I have a problem with the word failure, but I do think our society has a problem with the word failure. I have failed at many, many things in my life. And when I look back, I'm like, well, it wasn't really a failure because I learned this and da-da-da-da-da. And it's not a way to write it off. It's simply true. But our society does not like failure. It looks at, think about school. If you fail, you are punished. You get your report card sent home, and then your parents punish you. The teacher sits you in the corner, all the things because you failed. You didn't fail. You now understand a little bit more about whatever it is the subject was. not a fan of traditional schooling. I don't think it teaches the right energy around learning. Learning is phenomenal, amazing. We should continue to do it throughout our whole lives. We do hopefully continue to do it throughout our whole lives. But if you really took to heart the ways that you were taught about learning in school, you might not be the biggest fan. You kind of got to get over that before you can be a fan of learning again. So let's go back to your mistakes, because that's fun. I want you to think about the mistakes that you've made and how you could actually turn it into a lesson, not only for yourself, but maybe for the people that you love, or maybe for even random strangers. Like, hey, anybody can throw a video out on Facebook. And that doesn't mean, so often the way that we portray we made a mistake is that we're a victim of it. I made this mistake because I never learned any better, because my mom didn't do this, because my dad did do this, because my wife wasn't there when I needed her, because my brother said this when I was young. That's what I want. Full responsibility, people. Full responsibility. Your reactions, your actions are yours and yours alone. So that's your homework. Another piece of homework for you, because I do love to give homework, is if you have a story, maybe one of these mistakes was colossal and you learned something magnificent out of it. That would be amazing. And I would love to hear that story. Let's go on a little bit of a truth and honesty about our mistakes and how we either overcame them or learned from them or all of the above. If you think you have a message, I would love to hear from you. Part of what I love doing when I do these videos is interviewing people and talking to them about their life. And we don't have to talk about mistakes. Often mistakes are part of the growth, but we don't have to talk about mistakes. I would love to learn how you made a difference in your life, maybe the life of your family, maybe your community at large. That would be amazing. Now don't forget to look me up, Juliebrooks.life. I would love to hear from you, and I would love to work with you. Looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you, and have a fabulous week.